everybody. Welcome. I want to say welcome to a new episode of Inside HR, but actually this is a brand new show. Today we are doing our first episode of something called Outside HR. So for those who have seen Inside HR, as you know, I talk to really seasoned professionals from the HR space and talk to them about the pains and problems that they have. But one thing we never do is we never talk to people that don't have that HR infrastructure behind them. The hiring managers, the founders of new companies who haven't hired in HR yet. So we are starting a brand new show called Outside HR, where we talk to professionals that are not HR experts, and we talk about the pains of recruitment, the things that we found that were really enjoyable, and we'll try to share some of those best practices with you. So today we are starting Outside HR, and for episode number 1, today we are joined by Anita Toth. Anita, welcome to Outside HR.
Thanks, Mick. Happy to be here.
Perfect. Anita, can you tell us where you're joining us from today?
Absolutely. So I'm just outside Toronto, Canada, and you and I have just been talking briefly. I didn't tell you this, actually. My entire family is from Hungary, so very close to where you are in the world. But I make just outside Toronto my home.
Okay, perfect. And what I did for the viewers out there, I kind of put a shout out to all the people in my network that who was hired recently and didn't have that support of a HR manager or a recruitment agency, and who wants to share those experiences. And I'm so happy that you kind of put your hand up and said, let's talk about it. So, can we start by, what was your most recent recruitment process and who was it for?
So most recent was 3 days ago. It was wow. When I saw your post go out, I was like, oh, this is perfect, because I had just gone through it. I actually hired 2 people within a week and a half period. And again, like you said, I don't have an HR background. I come from academia. I had a layoff, got into creating my own businesses. Mm-hmm. It was just me, solopreneur, but this is the first time that I'm hiring for positions that are things that I am expert in, and now am training someone to become expert in as well, to take some of the pressure off of me. So it's not just like I'm hiring someone who's like, let's say, marketing director or sales, where they can just go off and do their job. And often their position is fairly clear, right? Mm-hmm. We know what marketing does. We know what sales does, but it's been the biggest thing I have to say with this is the fear. Okay. Can I train somebody to do what I have been doing to the degree that I do it, so that we provide the same level of service? I think that's been the biggest challenge so far, because it becomes easy as a founder with a particular skill. And my skill, if you're wondering, is around qualitative research methods, particularly interviewing.
Okay.
But not like HR interviewing, as in focus groups interviewing, customer feedback. Gotcha. So I worked at a research institute. This is what we did. And it's not just asking questions. The challenge is you have to know where to probe, kind of like you're doing as you're interviewing for this podcast, right? Sure. You have to know, like, what are the areas of interest that my audience would be more interested in? Or in this case, people hire me to ask questions on their behalf to try to get the information so they can then make some big decision around their business. Sure. Like that, it's a big responsibility. And it doesn't, often I really don't have expertise in the area that they're hiring me for. So I have to learn enough to be able to probe those right areas of the conversation to get those answers. And I'm somebody who's been doing this for years and years and years. I've just hired 2 people to train them to do this same thing that I'm doing. And even just talking about it now, like my hands are a little sweaty, my stomach's in a little bit of a knot, because so I'm not a first-time founder. I've had employees before. Other people hired them. But this is really personal, and this to me it's really up the game, if you will.
And this is not a qualification on a piece of paper, right? This is people skills, reading a room. Then this is something that even with the best recruitment process, you're not going to be sure until you've given them the power, right? So to speak.
Right.
So let me ask you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I will take a cut. Wait. Because I hate interruption. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have interrupted you.
No, go ahead.
So let me ask you a very simple question to start. Did you enjoy the recruitment process?
No.
And was there a part of it that really was painful?
So the painful part, I think, with any part of the recruitment process is the thinking behind it, which is, will I find someone who will meet the needs that I have? Did I properly express what those are? Like, I've applied for many jobs where on paper it looks great, and then you go to the interview and you're like, this isn't even the job at all. Like, it's not even close what they were asking. So I didn't enjoy it because there's that fear. Was I clear enough about why I'm hiring, what I need them to do? And also, is it something they're interested in doing? It's not just a job. I'm actually asking them when I'm hiring them, are you willing to develop this skill, which might be hard and it might be challenging, and you're not going to be good at it right away. You're not. So it's my responsibility to train you. So did I enjoy it? Like, not at all. It was nerve-wracking, and the tendency, at least with me, and I think a lot of people, is then to try to fill the position quickly to get over that. And I know, like, that's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that's such a great insight straight away. That, I mean, like you said, when you're faced with something that is stressful or painful, your reaction is, how do I get this done as quickly as possible? So I never thought about that in that way, that you're starting to instantly start making compromises just to make the process finish. Wow. And Anita, in your because you didn't have a HR person with you, did you have to kind of put this all on your shoulders? Do you have anybody else that you can share like their opinions with?
No, it's all on my shoulders. The company's growing, like I said in the past. So I had my businesses where I was a solopreneur, but before that, we had a custom shoe printing business, and there were 3 of us, and so we hired together. And that was a really different exercise, and in many ways took a lot of pressure off of me, because they could see things in the other person that I couldn't see, or from their perspective, those were the important parts that individual needed to fill to make, to make the job really work for both sides, for the employee and for us. So that was relatively easy. But now that I'm finding I'm doing it alone, no, it's really difficult. And one of the challenges, I don't mind pushing myself to learn new skills and go in new areas, but I don't want to learn HR. I really don't. What I would like to do is kind of like you said, hire someone eventually into the position that's what they're trained to do. That's what they're expert at. And I'm very happy to pay somebody to take that over. But right now, I don't have that. So I hate to say it, a lot of it went on gut feeling. Yeah, that was kind of the majority of the process, I mean,
feeling. I'm talking to HR experts, and I still don't think that particularly has gone away. I feel like it is a process in a business owners or any managerial profession, that statistics and numbers and CVs and resumes are only going to get you so far. So it kind of leads on to the next question, which was, obviously when I look at recruitment, we have finding candidates for a start who might have the role, then you interview them, and then you make a selection, let's say. How was that first part of that funnel for you? Did you get enough applications? Did you have to go looking for people? How did you approach it?
So, because I'm looking for a specific skill, and I come from the academic environment, the first thing I did was see, are there grad students? Like, I started learning qualitative research methods way back as an undergrad. I had a master's level course in it. And then just all my years of experience working at that research institute. So I thought, I'll go there.
Sure.
Right? Because the thing is, salespeople have this skill as well, in terms of listening, but for them, it's different. It's very different from being able to really probe and listen and not have an agenda in mind. So I had to make the decision first, like, do I want to just put this out there and risk getting a bunch of salespeople who might be able to do this? Or maybe like, because right now there's a lot of salespeople who aren't working, who might go, yeah, I can ask questions, I can interview. That was my fear. And then I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to go with the safe route and go through some of my networks. So I contacted one of my colleagues at the university, and she posted it. And someone from another university applied, but it didn't end up working out. He ended up getting a job just around the same time. So I went to my former boss, and lo and behold, actually yesterday she defended her master's. And so I'm assuming she got it. Like he's awesome. He's an awesome supervisor. So I'm sure that she was successful in what she was doing. But it's interesting because she's at the beginning part of the process. She's done interviewing just for herself and her projects. She's never had to interview on behalf of someone else. So even though she's qualified more so than the average person, she's not really that much further ahead than they are. Where she'll come in handy is with the data analysis, which is wonderful. Yep. So, but I still want to train her because I need somebody to come in. Because the thing is with doing, there's one project that we're looking at, it's 20 half-hour interviews. Okay. Well, that's 10 hours of my time just there, let alone the scheduling. And then we have everything that goes post-interview. So I was like, I need to start training somebody into this because you have to practice. You've got to practice. You've got to practice. So I hired her just 3 days ago. And then the week before that, I hired somebody who, same thing. I just went through a network. My friend runs, he has a survey business. Okay. Same thing. He came from academia. And he said, yep. Bridget, she used to do these surveys for me, but it was just literally, like those robocalls you get and do you mind answering a few questions? And so that's what she did, which is not the same at all. That was just reading questions, recording answers and done. So now I'm taking someone who has like pretty much zero skill and seeing if I can teach them.
Sure. I mean, but the good news with that candidate, probably you're going to be improving her working experience, going from robotic to let's use your mind and let's build you. So kind of like on a numbers point of view, you were kind of like 2 for 2 or 3 for 2, like 3 candidates to successful recruitment, which shows the power of referrals when it comes to,
absolutely.
And so what I was trying to think, like, so do you felt really, it's probably a nice feelings question, let's say, but you didn't feel any urge to have like a wider scope, like, okay, I've picked 2 from 3. What if I talk to 10? Because sometimes we do that, right? We want to shop around because we're concerned. But when you come from a source of trust, which is former colleagues, former employees, probably that kind of overcomes that pain.
It did. And so the fear is, I think there's risk in all of this, okay? Like full stop, let's call it what it is. You're just balancing risks. So if I talk to 10 people, is that going to reduce the risk of the choice that I landed on in the beginning? I'm somebody who would rather work from a smaller pool and see if I can, see if I made the right decision. I'll know fairly quickly, right? Yep. It's not like I'm hiring for a position that I have no idea about. Let's say if I'm hiring for a salesperson, I've never done sales before. Well, I'm not going to have any idea if they're doing a good job or not. But with this, I do. Why? Because this is my skill. So I can see within, and of course I'm paying them for their time as we go through and this learning process. I was very clear with them. There's a significant training period that's going to happen before I will ever, put you live with an interview, but I'll know after 2 or 3 sessions if they get it or not. Right?
So totally makes sense. And I think, like you said, so we kind of lead on to a question that's maybe quite interesting, especially when it comes to someone like yourself who's founding a business from the ground up. The decision to recruit was because you hit capacity personally. And what did you feel like, did you think, okay, I was always going to recruit anyway, or you almost got forced into recruiting from need of the business to grow?
So the business grew a little fast, so it's both.
Sure.
I wasn't expecting when I had talked, because what I do is very niche, and I charge a lot of money for it, right? It's based on all those years of experience. So it's not like I have a massive pipeline with hundreds of people. Like, it's, maybe I will one day, but I'm not there yet.
Sure.
And so it was one of these, like, I know I eventually have to hire someone, but holy, it came fast, because one of the projects, he went from like, oh, we want 10, 30-minute interviews to 20.
Sure.
So that suddenly went from 5 hours in a 2-week period to now over 10 hours of just my time.
Yeah.
Right. And then you have to mentally prepare. It's not like just 30 minutes, like probably for each 30-minute interview takes 45 minutes, right? By the time I prepare, make sure everything's set up, and then run through the interview. And then sometimes they go long. You're having a great conversation. I'm not going to cut you off if you're telling me stuff that might be very helpful. So when you start factoring that in, I realize, like, I don't have much time, and I know it takes a while to train people. Like, I better start now.
Yep.
And so that's why I hired 2 people so quickly, and like in close proximity to each other. One's going to take longer to train. But the grad student, she at least has some skills. And with this particular project, even if I get her to do 1 or 2, that will still be immensely helpful for me.
Makes a lot of sense. So it leads me on to my next question, which is, you know, like you said, you've recruited over the period of your career in different roles with different support. When you were making this recruitment kind of right now, you got your candidates, which was great. I'm really happy that you got them through the source. Anything during the recruitment process that surprised you? Did they have any requirements that you were taken aback, or you didn't feel out of your comfort zone at that moment?
No. So the job allows for a lot of flexibility, which is great. The concern, though, with one of the candidates is she just picks up odd jobs here and there all the time, but she's not that great with computers. Okay. So the worry is that she's going to forget to hit record. So I have to make sure now that I have standard operating procedures set out for her, so she can go step by step by step, and knowing all the things she has to do, which means then when I'm going through and I'm so used to that process of, you know, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this, boom, I'm on the interview. I now have to step back and ensure that's there. So I already had that little red flag of, you know, not 100. Like, she even struggled with Zoom and some of the stuff there. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be your primary tool. What can I do to overcome that? See, I see it as my responsibility as an employer to give them all the tools that they need in the proper training. That's my job. And so when somebody struggles, it's often because I haven't made something clear. So I do work with a VA, and that's what I learned. Like, her questions were because it was clear in my mind, but like, she's not a mind reader. We tried, it didn't work. It's my responsibility as an employer to make sure she has everything she needs so that she can perform her job well. And when I started doing these SOPs, guess what? The quality of her work went up immensely. So it taught me a lot about what I need to do to help them be successful.
So, I mean, that's a great point. And I think I'm definitely from that school of thought where I'm looking at an individual in an interview process and saying, I see enough potential. I can adapt slightly what I had in my mind as an end product to make it work for you. Where when I'm talking to recruiters, it's almost the other way around, where they feel that they have this goal of recruiting this person. And if the person in the room, or if the candidate doesn't fit the criteria, they look for the next candidate. So, but like you said, I feel like it's also slightly based on different motivations. Like you said, you want to find the right person. You know that there is a time constraint where a recruiter is very much motivated by the right hire who's going to get them paid, basically. Right. So totally different styles, but ultimately, I don't think either of them are bad. It's more about what your constraints are, right?
Right. And I also think it's like, this is my company. I'm the one who's founding this. So for me, I am like right at point zero. A recruiter could be at point 50 out from, you know what I mean? So why should they have the same motivations as I have? They shouldn't. In fact, that would be kind of worrisome if they did. Because again, they're there to do that type of job, that type of role. Like, I have made the mistake of hiring too fast. Oh, what a disaster. I got happy ears. Oh, they're telling me everything I want to hear, you know, whereas a recruiter would have listened and like discounted those people. But this was, you know, eight, 9 years ago, I think we had that business. And so I realized, whoa, like this is really bad for me that I'm so willing, like you said, to compromise, to hear those red flags and then just somehow discount them away because I'm desperate to get this position filled. And of course, what do you think? It did not work out well for either party.
Yeah, I mean, I've come from a sales background, and I hear this phrase over and over again of salespeople have to hire fast and fire fast. And I don't think it's particularly required. I think it's a little bit more cutthroat than it needs to be. But I think that is where what recruiters and what recruiting managers for salespeople are trying to say is, like we talked about before, I don't have the skills or the experience to verify this person in the interview. So I am just going to adopt this whole process of, if they don't work out, I'll let them go, because then I feel better and I will sleep better at night. Right. And it's understandable, but there is probably a nice middle ground, I think.
Right. And for myself, like going through it this time versus in the past, like we said, with happy ears. I mean, I had to fire my first person back then. And that was like an agonizing thing because it was obvious, like he was a horrible fit. He wasn't happy and we weren't happy, but it was my job to say those words. And I've come to learn that when it's not a good fit, it doesn't have to be a personal thing either. In some ways, and it's ironic, actually, I'm just writing an article right now saying why, you know, letting go of clients or customers is good for your business. And it's because of that same reason. If they're not a good fit, they're a better fit somewhere else, and let them shine there. You know, I've been in jobs where it just felt wrong to me. And it's not that I'm not a good worker. I am a good worker. I always gave my heart. I always tried my best. But when it's not a good fit, those things are not enough to overcome that. And therefore, you think there's something wrong with you. So I've learned that, yes, in some ways, the best thing is to let go quickly when you start seeing those signs. But sometimes you have to, different people acclimate at different speeds too. And you have to give a little bit of breathing space to them because there's new culture, there's new ways of doing things. Like there's a lot coming at them. So hire fast, fire fast. Yeah, I get it. But I'm more with you. I think there's more of a middle ground because you could let somebody go who could be like a superstar. They could be your best employee, but maybe they needed that extra week or two to really feel comfortable before you started seeing the evidence that like, whoa, this person's great. I'm so glad we hired them.
And I think it's also, like you said, I mean, you mentioned it even before in such a nice way that it's also, as a hiring person, a hiring boss, hiring manager, if you feel part of the responsibility to that person's success, then you are willing to adapt, to make changes, help them, train them in a different way if it's not working. Where I still think that the hire fast, fire fast mentality is also like, I'm hiring you. I'm trying personally to take as little responsibility for your results as possible, and therefore I will call it. So I think it's also the fact that it's also about how much you as a hiring manager or a business owner feel part of that process. And I'm with you. Every time I'm going through a recruitment process, I'm saying to people on day one, I don't want you to have any surprises. Let's talk about all the things we possibly can today, so that all that nice energy you have when you wake up in the morning, you get dressed for your first day at work, you don't walk in, see something you didn't expect, and it just drains away. You know, I've been there, maybe you've been there, you know, it's so easy to lose that energy when something's like, oh, I didn't know this was the office, or I didn't know this was my responsibility, I didn't know this person was going to be my supervisor. So it's great to get it all out so that energy stays, and stays hopefully for a long time.
Yeah, I'm so I already made a mistake. I watched it happen. You know, when you're
Yeah.
I was with the first hire, so the lady who doesn't have any experience doing this, just doing surveys. I showed her a chart and it had all the data in it. And I was like, I shouldn't have, because I could see the overwhelm. I could see it was subtle, but I could see it in her eyes. Like they kind of widened. And I went, oh, next time, note to self, show her the chart that doesn't have the data so she can just see the columns she's working with, because she got over, it was this visceral reaction. I could see it. And so I was like, all right, these are the small things but also make a difference. I don't want her coming and feeling overwhelmed right from the start. So I told her, and I showed her some of the SOPs I've written for my assistant, so that she could see it's going to be with screenshots, step by step by step, because I know, so I come from the software as a service world, or SaaS world. Onboarding customers is so key to the process, but so is onboarding employees properly. And like you said, talking to them about all the different things, the good and the not so good, because there's going to be not so good. And I don't think it's raising the not so good as much as how do we deal with it when we bump up against that. So whether it's client or customer onboarding, employee onboarding, I think has to be the same. This is how I prefer to deal with it. This is how, and the other thing I learned in working with this virtual assistant, we've worked together, 3.5 years, I think, is telling her how I prefer to be approached. Right? So when she gets in a difficult position, this is how I prefer you to come to me with this problem. So there's some people that I've heard who are like, don't come to me with a problem, come to me with 3 solutions. You know, I've heard that. Okay, fine. You know what? If that works for them, great for you. But for me, come to me with the problem. And I can't tell you how often it's been because of some key piece that I failed to tell her. Right? And that created the problem. Right? We're thinking very differently. She is very process oriented, this to this to this, whereas I'm much more broad brush stroke. Well, guess what? My brush stroke means I skip little bits. And then she goes, I thought you might want to do this. But again, she's very logical in her thinking. I'm not always that logical. So I'm so grateful for it that she was open to working through these little bumps. And the interesting thing is I've watched her grow and become more confident in who she is, because we had a very specific way to work through our difficulties.
And I think that's so unique to you as well as a person, and that relationship you have with them, right? I mean, that is that is, again, we can always encourage transparency, communication. One thing I have is, just because I've done so much experience in sales backgrounds, I know that in person with my team, I'm quite good at convincing them of my way of thinking, because I'm energetic and I'm excited. But so even what I've had to do with my team is say, hey, listen, okay, also every Monday, I want you to write down your thoughts, what you like, what you don't like about the week, and what you've got going on. So I am not going to impact them with my personality, which I know I do. I try not to, but I'm energetic. So I agree. And I think it's about reading the process. And it's great that you're getting those things out even in the recruitment process and explaining to candidates. Like the same thing with me. I tell every candidate that in our world, in SaaS, as a startup almost, I need you to be okay with getting things wrong. I need you to be okay with making mistakes. And don't tell me the interview answer, because the first thing I try to do as well is say, and believe me, it's okay if you are not. Like, I know many people that are not mistake people. They can't admit them. They get stressed, and I don't need to be stressed. So all kind of wraps up. And I think that it's great that we are on the same path. And this is because we are both not HR yet and so on, which is great. But, you know, I want to wrap up with 2 questions. And I've got, the first one is this. Considering, I think you had a great recruitment process, by the way. I think people would love the 2 out of 3 ratio.
Yeah, we'll see. Come back in a year and we'll see where those numbers are.
Was there anything from this recruitment process that was a learning curve, like that you picked up like that little tip and you said, okay, that's noted down. The next time I recruit, I'm going to do that? Or was there anything that you kind of picked up as a new thing?
Right. So I think the biggest thing, and I spoke about it earlier, even when I was looking for work all those years ago, it is really give people the why you're hiring in the job description. So I failed to do that. Even when I sent that little message to my former colleague, I didn't know she was going to throw it up on some grad school job board. She didn't tell me that. She didn't tell me anything. Lo and behold, up it went. And I realized then if I'm just reaching out to even ask for help now through my networks, to have something that's very clear, including the why. This is why I'm doing this. This is what I'm looking for. And then also some of those little things, like if you are because I need someone who, like you said, is willing to make mistakes, who's willing to try learning a new skill that may be challenging, because that's what this is. You're not going to learn it in a week and a half. You're going to get better. It's kind of like sales, right?
Yep.
You just get better and better over time. But truly, in some ways, your training never really ends. So that is one of the things I would recommend. Even going through your networks, have a very clear job description with the why behind it. Because I think by putting the why, at least for me, then they can see whether they align with that bigger picture or not. Because they might align with the job description perfectly, but if their values are misaligned to that why, it's not going to work.
And you don't want, my biggest fear is anytime I'm recruiting is I don't want people that are applying for any job. Now, I know that under the situation, people are nervous. There's pressure to put food on the table, shoes on feet. However, every time someone who's job seeking, I still say, please think about what you want to do. If you work hard, there will be that role. I understand that you want to, make the money, but you need to have a job, which totally I get. However, that's a scary thing for any kind of recruiter, that you're just taking anything, right? So it's really important to have that culture fit and that why. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
And my last question, unfortunately, because I would love to keep this going. It's such a great conversation, by the way. Thank you for this. Is what part of the recruitment process do you feel that you would have liked support with? You did this all on your own. You went and found candidates, interviewed them. Like, what was the part where you go like, I wish I had somebody to help me with that?
I think that the biggest is just like it was when we had that other business is, where are my blind spots, right?
Yep.
Because I'm prone to happy years. I want to fill the position. I know this about myself, that this is how I am. That's what I would like. And where it's going to be a challenge, and I'll tell you this going forward, is hiring into those positions where I might need somebody who is not similar to me. So in person, like I'm not huge on like real numbers, and some people just love their data and their numbers, and they're very analytical. And ironically, one of my closest friends is like this. But her and I've had to really learn over the years to meet that middle ground, because it's easier to get, just as we always do. We want the same world view as us because it makes it easy, but it doesn't necessarily move the business forward.
Yeah.
So it's going to be when I hire those people, maybe like a CFO, who might have a very different way of looking at things and push me.
Yeah.
That is where this entire recruitment process is really going to change. And I need the benefit of then, especially of somebody else coming in. With the other positions, I've done marketing, I've done sales, customer success is who I tend to work with now. So on the whole, I know what those are like, but finance, HR, those are like two different worlds to me. That's when I would want the benefit of somebody else to help me with those hires, because my tendency will be to just want to discount very quickly because they're not aligned with who I am in my view. But I also I know I need people like that in the business to push me and say like, oh, you really think that's a smart move? Maybe it isn't.
It's such a great point. Again, like you said, like I would be exactly the same. I could never be an accountant. I'm that kind of person that's like, with the numbers missing like $5, it's okay. And the accountant is like, no, I want that 43 cents and I want to know where it came from and where it went. And like you said, I mean, it's so true what you said. I think it's a great point to finish on. Is like, you can't only hire people that kind of match your characteristics and your even your values to some extreme, because a very precise person might not value the same things that you do, but a business needs that kind of, differentials to work with. So that makes total sense. Anita, thank you so much for today. That was super, super helpful. If somebody wanted to ask you some questions or follow you on Twitter, or where are you hanging out, where can people kind of say hello and maybe ask you about some things on the video?
Absolutely. So Twitter is not one of the places.
That's okay for me too. I just threw it out there.
I have so kept it simple. 2 places you can find me: AnitaToth.ca. So if you go to .com, you're in the wrong place. You'll see me bright orange shirt. So actually what I do is I help SaaS companies reduce churn. So if you see something about churn, you don't know what it is, hey, you're in the right place, because that's what I do. And the other place is on LinkedIn. I'm only on those two places, very active on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to me. And again, I have that bright orange shirt on, so it's very easy to pick out which profile's mine. And I love answering questions and seeing if I can help people and even put you in touch. But the one thing I do ask, and this is where it gets tough, is when people come asking for jobs. I can ask you, I can help you if you're looking to solve something, maybe want to learn more. I definitely will put people together in my network. But the sort of banging on doors, can you give me a job, is right against my values. So that's the one place where I draw the line. But if you have questions to ask or you want to learn more about something, please do reach out. LinkedIn's the best.
I'm sure we're going to have some business founders who are at that early stage recruitment that would love to hear from you. And anyone that can beat 2 out of 3, I want to hear from you as well. But that's great. And that's what network is for, right? That's what we value. And I think that also a big part of that is, like you said, that trust. The candidate is being referred to you, you're being referred to the candidate. There's a beautiful kind of connection instantly. So that's great. So Anita, thank you so much for being on Outside HR. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Mick. Had a great time.
You too. Thanks now. We'll speak to you soon.
Take care. Bye.